Sight for Wight talking news for Friday the 20th of November 2020.
This is Chris reading an item from the Isle of Wight radio. Transport Chief calls for crackdown on Isle of Wight pavement parking. The Isle of Wight Council's Transport Chief is calling for a crackdown on pavement parking. Councillor Ian Ward, the Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Transport, wants local obstruction enforcement powers. Currently, the Department for Transport, DFT, is holding a consultation for ways in which to tackle pavement parking, with one final option seeing all pavement parking prohibited, like in Greater London. Although the DFT concedes many of the towns and cities in the country were not designed to accommodate high levels of traffic, which leads to pavement parking, it says there are inherent dangers for all pedestrians, with particular difficulties for those with sight or mobility difficulties and those with prams. Local authorities do manage their own road networks to reduce congestion and disruption, while also having specific powers for parking enforcement rather than the police, such as setting restrictions to parking within specific areas by traffic regulation orders and issuing penalty charge notices. The offence of unnecessary obstruction of the highway, including in situations where obstructive parking on the pavement is deemed avoidable, is, however, dealt with under criminal law by the police, and local authorities are unable to enforce against them. The consultation proposes 3 options to the pavement parking problem. Rely on improvements to the traffic management system, allow local authorities to enforce against unnecessary pavement obstructions, or to get rid of pavement parking altogether. Discussing the issue at the Neighbourhoods and Regeneration Policy and Scrutiny Committee, the Isle of Wight Council did not support getting rid of pavement parking, but a mixture of improving the traffic order systems and enforcement powers. Members of the committee agreed in some of the island's narrow roads, parking on the pavement meant the road was clear, but it would be a very difficult and contentious subject to address. Councillor Ward has submitted a motion to full council to request the leader write to the appropriate government minister to request obstruction enforcement powers for the parking team to deal with the situation locally without having to rely on the police, who have enough to do already. In his motion, Councillor Ward said, "This council is concerned about the dangers of pavement parking causing problems for sight-impaired residents, disabled residents, pram and pushchair users and mobility scooter users, as well as the general public, and wants to address the situation on the island." The change in power could mean parking enforcement officers who give out tickets and fines would be able to add penalty points to a driver's licence where dangerous parking has taken place. The motion will be voted on at the full council meeting on Wednesday, November the 18th at 5 p.m.
This is Brian reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Bereaved flouting COVID rules, Isle of Wight Council told. The bereaved have been flouting socially distancing rules at the Isle of Wight crematorium, a meeting of the Isle of Wight Cabinet heard. Reminders have been issued to those visiting the crematorium to stick to the protective COVID measures, as a lack of adherence has become a concern and could put at risk those working there. During the second lockdown, funerals can still take place, but must stick to the guidance of having no more than 30 people attending if social distancing allows that many people, and face coverings must be worn when attending indoor places of worship, crematoria and burial grounds unless you're exempt. The Isle of Wight Council's bereavement services team, however, has raised concerns that when people visit the crematorium in Whippingham, all thoughts around social distancing and safety go right out of the window. Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Councillor Gary Peace, said he understands why social distancing measures may be forgotten at such a hard time, but it was vitally important people follow the hands, face, space message. He said, "I know it is a terribly difficult time for family and friends, and they all want to hug and console each other, but what we cannot forget is we need to keep maintaining our social distancing and wear masks. If we want to keep the numbers low on the island and keep the pressure off St Mary's Hospital and the bereavement services also, we need to make sure people are still following those guidelines. The measures are also in place to protect the bereavement staff that work at the crematorium. As Councillor Peace said, it would not take very many people to get sick before maintaining the service would become a real issue. On one occasion, the staff had seen a full chapel of 28 people, but not one person was wearing a mask indoors, despite the guidance now making it mandatory unless you're exempt. Leader of the council, Councillor Dave Stewart, said he would ask the Chief Executive of the Council to see if the new COVID support officers would be able to help out, stating, "We don't want people getting infected at the worst possible time."
Islanders urged to be aware of government scam email from Isle of Wight Radio. Iona. Have you received a strange email that appears to be from the government offering you a coronavirus support scheme grant extension? Islanders are being warned to stay vigilant and not click on the email as it is a scam. You must delete it immediately. Trading Standards says if you look closely at the email address of the sender, it is clear that it is not a legitimate government address. You can report a scam by emailing trading.standards@iow.gov.uk. Westacre Park plans, Westridge farm owners hit back over unfair coverage. From Isle of Wight Radio, Iona. Landowners of a farm in Ryde have defended themselves after extensive media coverage about the tenants who are at risk of losing their home. Controversial plans for 475 houses on Westridge Farm in Ryde have been the centre of debate for one farming family, the Holidays. Those who could lose their livelihood home if the development is approved. After the issue came to light in the media, most recently shown on BBC South Today, owners of the land, Arnbrow, wrote an open letter to the leader of the Isle of Wight Council, Councillor Dave Stewart, and all other councillors explaining why the coverage so far has not been a fair or accurate representation of the situation. In the letter, Robert Ball, director of the company, said a commercial settlement was mutually agreed with the Holidays for the land forming Westacre Park, proposing money and land valued at £800,000. According to Mr Ball, the family had clearly demonstrated their willingness to agree commercial terms and cease farming at Westridge. But before signing the documents, the Holidays had resorted to seek more money, asking for £1 million instead. Responding to the letter in a statement on the Save Westridge Farm Facebook page, the family said the letter insinuates that they've been unreasonable in the negotiations, but the offers put forward were simply not fair or viable and purely suited to the needs of the landowner. The commercial settlement, the family said, did offer the £800,000 and the remaining 50 acres of land not taken up by the Westacre Park development, but with no home or suitable dairy and farm buildings and a multi-user pathway across it. So, a counter-offer was put in for £1 million, based on relocating to another dairy farm where heavy investments would be needed. In November last year, the family was prepared to accept the lower offer, but the payment terms put forward by Arnbro meant that they would receive nothing on surrendering their tenancy and receiving their first payment only when they left the farm. The family said this would have forced them to close the dairy farm, potentially before planning permission was granted and with no farm to move to. They said, "This is an extremely difficult time, knowing that everything our family has worked for is in jeopardy. Dairy farming is not a job, it is a way of life, and to walk away and leave it all behind is not a decision we could take lightly." Revised plans for the development were officially lodged with the Isle of Wight Council last week, which means the public consultation has reopened and will close on the 4th of December. Councillor Michael Lilly, representative for the area, has said the future development is not needed when 1,500 houses are already approved for RIDE. He said, in 2014, only 1,400 were needed, according to the Council's housing delivery plan. We do not need a further 475, but we do need a farm that could produce local food for our community and protect our environment. The Westacre Park development is about making money from an off-island owner and an island family trying to keep their business, home and livelihood going. I support this farming family even stronger than before. The greed is with the land owner.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. GP referrals to St Mary's Hospital have dropped by more than 50% over last year, but emergency admissions over 70s are on the rise. Isle of Wight NHS Trust bosses say patients continue to turn up at the emergency department at St Mary's Hospital in Newport, requiring urgent care when it could have been treated beforehand. Those emergency admissions have increased by 15% when compared to October last year. Speaking at a meeting of the Trust Board last week, Joe Smythe, Chief Operating Officer, said on the face of it, fewer referrals from GPs may seem like a good thing, but the patients not being seen may be getting worse and will end up being admitted to hospital. He said, "It is true to say we are seeing an increase of emergency admissions coming into the hospital, and it is true the majority that increases is in the over 70s. From 19th to the 25th of October, 325 referrals were made from GPs, compared to 705 in the same week last year, a drop of 54%. In the 4 weeks prior to that, referrals were only at 65% of what they were last year. A Break the Cycle event is underway this week, conducted by the Isle of Wight NHS Trust with community and primary care providers to see if they can reach out and assess the most needy. Mr. Smythe said they were able to identify who those patients are by looking at records and seeing who are often responsible for a significant number of admissions, being admitted 3 or 4 times in the past year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, changes made to the emergency department and the increase of emergency admissions have led to significant pressures. Bed capacity has been reduced by 10% to keep COVID-positive patients away from other, while gaps in staffing filled by temporary postings with doctors unfamiliar to the Trust's process and model of care. Mr. Smythe said he wanted to assure everyone the hospital is safe, but the Break the Cycle event will look at ways of solving some of those problems. How to better manage patients in the emergency department, how to better discharge patients, and looking at the central process to ensure people are being processed as quickly as possible. He said, "The purpose of this is to see if our theory around people not accessing primary care because of the virtual world and they are worried about coming out is there, and we do that by reaching out into people's homes." Maggie Oldham, Chief Executive, said primary care colleagues are busier now than they were last year, but the increase of emergency admissions felt like it is another cohort of patients presenting to the hospital, instead of those skipping primary care and coming straight to the hospital. However, a lack of evidence and data is yet to confirm that, but is being worked on by the NHS Trust.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Rat poison and broken glass deliberately left to injure animals at Parkhurst. Dogs have been left in immense pain as a result of rat poison, slug pellets and broken glass being deliberately and maliciously left at an entrance to Parkhurst Forest. Police have issued a warning after recently receiving reports of grain laced with poison being left on paths which lead into the forest at Mark's Corner. Further reports have been received of broken glass also being left, both of which cause immense pain and suffering to animals. The person or persons responsible could be charged with offences under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, the Protection of Animals Act 1911, and the Animal Welfare Act 2006. It has been said on social media that dog walkers have been intimidated in the area. Those living or walking in the area, including those with CCTV on nearby houses, are being asked to provide Hampshire Constabulary with any information by calling 101. The RSPCA can also be contacted on 0300 1234 999. Islanders should remain vigilant and report any further suspicious incidents to Hampshire Constabulary, quoting 442 004 41569.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Isle of Wight Observer. The headline is, the first new Class 484 train set to operate on Island Line from 2021 has arrived on the Isle of Wight. The first of the refurbished trains for Island Line arrived yesterday afternoon, that's Thursday, on a lorry on a ferry. The trains, known as Class 484s, previously served London's District Line and are set to replace the existing 82-year-old rolling stock which has been in service on the island since the late 1980s. They have been given a full makeover and now boast free onboard Wi-Fi, charging sockets and wheelchair spaces. 4 more trains will be arriving over the coming months ahead of the line closing from January 4th to March 31st for improvements to the track and infrastructure and the installation of a new passing loop at Brading. Councillor Ian Ward, the Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure, was there to welcome the new train to the island. He said, "Now that I have seen one of the coaches up close, it looks, for all intents and purposes, brand new. I'm sure they will serve Island Line and its passengers well over the coming years." Council leader Dave Stewart added, "This is really good news. The new trains are the result of significant investment in the future by the Isle of Wight Council, the Solent Local Enterprise Partnership and the Government. Isle of Wight residents deserve decent trains."
Bullying claims as Isle of Wight Council meeting turns ugly. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. Things turned ugly on Wednesday evening at the meeting of the Isle of Wight Council, as one councillor said he was being bullied. During the debate on the revised Isle of Wight Council constitution, Councillor Jeff Brodie initially proposed 6 amendments to the 275-page document, as what he called a lack of consultation had allowed him to submit them earlier. His first amendment, a change of wording to stop the interpretation of a point being used to remove councillors from committees by the full council and not their political group, was not accepted by council officers, despite a proposed change being agreed by Councillor Stuart Hutchinson's, the councillor presenting the item. It was explained by Monitoring Officer Chris Potter, in his view of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, the amendment was not valid, as it sought to negate the law and was not appropriate. Councillor Brodie said he did not think Mr. Potter understood what the amendment was, but the change was overruled, and Chief Executive John Metcalfe said a detailed explanation would be sent to Councillor Brodie. The second amendment was then put forward, removing the word relevant when it came to the term independent persons in the Constitution. Calling a point of order, Councillor Richard Hollis brought up the last full council meeting, where a councillor made an unfortunate comment and got chastised for it, and asked whether there were 2 sets of standards for other members, as Councillor Brodie can be rude to everyone and no one damn well cares. He said, "I have listened to Councillor Brodie telling people they don't care, being rude to members about the process, being rude to the monitoring officer, and has quite clearly made very little attempt to understand and ask questions about this beforehand, which we are all capable of doing." Councillor George Cameron, Chair, said they did not accept rude comments, but it was up to the individual to make a complaint. Councillor Brodie said he increasingly felt he was being bullied by the Conservative administration because he raised things relating to democracy and asked the Chair to get Councillor Hollis to retract his remarks, which he considered to be bullying. When Councillor Brodie pressed for an answer, Councillor Cameron said Councillor Brodie had made a comment which was not very good in a public forum and that it would be dealt with afterwards. Leader of the council, Councillor Dave Stewart, said everyone should act professionally and sensibly, and that Councillor Brodie made a sweeping remark that brought in 22 Conservative councillors, in quotes, who had not said a thing. He said, "That is the kind of thing to me that comes across as unprofessional." Councillor Brodie did not put any further amendments forward because of the way he had been treated. He said, "This is an undemocratic council that wishes to railroad through this constitution, and I will withdraw any further amendments. It is a sad day when a member cannot make amendments without being bullied by the administration." The constitution was later approved.
This is Brian reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Ireland firm creates London Underground signs for Sony PlayStation 5 launch. Giant illuminated London Underground signs have been specially created by an Ireland business for the launch of the new Sony PlayStation 5. A.J. Wells and Sons recently worked on an exciting project for the 2020 launch. The Isle of Wight Signage and Engineering Company, who make much of the iconic signage for London Underground, was commissioned by Transport for London to create 4 giant illuminated signs in the shape of the PlayStation console buttons. The pole-mounted signs were designed to temporarily replace the standard roundels that mark the 4 street exits at London's Oxford Circus station. The triangle, circle, cross and square were erected under the cover of darkness on Tuesday and will be on display for just 48 hours before being taken down and moved to Sony's London headquarters for permanent display. The marketing stunt forms part of an elaborate narrative that Sony have created in the lead up to the UK launch of their new PS5 console on Thursday, November the 19th. The signs were designed, manufactured and installed by A.J. Wells and Sons. The project was carried out under strict secrecy and turned around in just over 2 weeks.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Large Fawley demolition shakes Isle of Wight. A loud bang heard across the Isle of Wight was reportedly caused by demolition work on the mainland. At around 10 a.m. on Thursday, residents across the island, including in Ryde, Newport, East Cowes and Binstead, took to social media after hearing a loud boom. Speculation was rife, with many fearing it could have been an earthquake. It has since been revealed that the rumble came from demolition work at Fawley Power Station in Southampton.
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight County Press. COVID. Scholars bus fears as Southern Vectis says it's about space. School children with Freedom bus passes should be able to board Southern Vectis normal public buses as alternatives to the operator's dedicated buses for scholars, says an Isle of Wight father. Meanwhile, the bus firm insists pupils are not banned from using public buses, but adds they should use the scholar-only buses in service instead. It is a message that has meant an island teenager has unexpectedly been refused a seat on a bus route that the family has relied on for years. They pay £117 for a 90-day Freedom Pass, which has previously meant unlimited travel on any bus. Due to COVID-19 regulations, public buses cannot carry as many passengers. Buses for school children are not subject to the same governmental restrictions, however, and social distancing is not required. It has raised safety fears for some, alongside worries about behaviour and anxiety. Richard Stiddlesley, Southern Vectis General Manager, said, "We are certainly not refusing school pupils access to our buses. However, we do need to ensure everyone who wishes to travel with us is able to practice social distancing." Southern Vectis says it is trying to guarantee space for all passengers on busy routes, but others argue children should not be forced to travel on buses that are not socially distanced, with year groups, bubbles mixing in a confined space. Richard Tindersley said, "We have introduced a number of duplicate buses on normal service routes. That means 2 buses follow the same route. The duplicate buses are not school buses but service buses introduced exclusively for students, and all tickets are accepted. We've been asking them to board these buses rather than the regular ones because we want to ensure there is plenty of space for our regular customers too, especially the many key workers we carry each day. Southern Vectis also runs the Isle of Wight Council school bus contract, which underwent major changes at the start of this academic year. Many traditional routes and paid-for seats were scrapped. To meet the shortfall and to transport the scores of students left without a route to class, scholar-only buses were introduced. Southern Vectis has also added buses on busy routes worst affected by the coronavirus regulations. Southern Vectis says scholar-only buses do have reduced capacity, but only because the front seats are not used. It says scholar buses are cleaned in the same way as its regular route vehicles. Mr. Tindersley said, "Our team is looking forward to a time when we no longer need on-board social distancing arrangements, and I'd like to thank our customers across the island for their patience during this very challenging time." One dad told the county press that if a child was told that it could not get on a bus, that was the same as being banned from it. Their only option would be to wait for a later service or use the scholar-only bus. He said, "Why is it safe for school children to travel on overcrowded buses, but it isn't acceptable for other members of the public? Will children be forced to use these scholar-only buses after COVID-19?
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo. Cowes Harbour Commission are investigating the potential for redeveloping the wharf to re-establish the long-term viability of the site. Cowes Harbour Commission, the CHC, has had a harbour workshop at the Kingston Wharf site in East Cowes since 2000, then leased and developed the boatyard operation in 2004 and acquired the site and wharf in 2012. The 10-acre waterfront marine employment site is home to the Cowes Harbour Services boatyard, commercial marine operations and self-storage facility, as well as a number of on-site independent business tenants. The last 2 years have seen significant changes with the departure of the two largest commercial tenants. Initially, Isle of Wight Aggregates took the decision to consolidate their operations onto their existing site in Cowes, and recently, Isle of Wight Fuels ceased their fuel import business by ship to Kingston Wharf. These commercial decisions by independent companies involved in bulk shipping and supply to the Isle of Wight will have significant implications for the harbour and are likely to result in the need to adjust strategic planning for the harbour and the island. The former aggregate site and wharf has been marketed for a couple of years, but without significant resulting interest. CHC has therefore been considering alternative and strategically beneficial opportunities for further developing the potential of the Kingston site with its all-tide deep water access and wharfage. As a result, the CHC commissioned a feasibility plan from a project manager-led team of architects and a civil and structural engineers to investigate the potential for partial redevelopment as a marine business park and boatyard facility to re-establish the long-term viability of the site. Due to a strategic shortage of marine-based industrial accommodation on both sides of the River Medina and in the Solent region, the CHC Kingston project team considers there is an opportunity to redevelop parts of the Kingston Wharf site to attract new commercial marine tenants. An outline plan has been developed that maximises the potential of the site in terms of new development, whilst also retaining CHC's existing boatyard storage facility on the middle terrace. The design allows for a larger hoist to be accommodated should this be required in the future. Although outlined at this stage, the development would create additional commercial units with 7 starter units on the upper terrace and 4 larger units on the lower terrace. At the CHC board meeting in October, commissioners reviewed the latest proposals for the regeneration and redevelopment of Kingston Wharf and agreed a recommendation to consult with the Cowes Harbour Advisory Committee, that's the CHAC, prior to commencing the process for seeking outline planning permission from the Isle of Wight Council. The board also agrees to progress the initial estimate costings into detailed costings and acknowledged that the scheme will have a funding shortfall that would require some form of grant funding support. CHC acknowledges that the development may need to be delivered in phases based on the business plan which is being progressed and the funding situation. The initial phased development is likely to be driven by the new income revenue that can be achieved by expanding the boat storage facilities onto the lower terrace and utilising the 2 wharves for larger vessels and the potential addition of pontoons. There is also capacity to increase the size and number of boats that can be lifted by investing in an additional hoist for small vessels and, in time, increasing the size of the current hoist. The subsequent phases will see the construction of the new commercial units where there's proven demand from occupiers. The first step is to make this strategic intention clear by submitting an outline planning application to enable CHC to react to market demand. CHC believes this is the right time to make this commitment to regenerate Kingston Wharf for the benefit of the whole River Medina and Port of Cowes.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Observer. It's a wrap for The Beast Must Die. Director Dome Karakosi shouted, "That's a wrap." And with those words, the filming for the BritBox series The Beast Must Die came to an end this week. As previously reported, a total of 600 hours were filmed over the 61-day shoot on the island at a variety of locations from Yarmouth to Ventnor, taking in places like Allen Bay, the Military Road, Culver Down and Compton along the way. Access to the set was restricted because of COVID, but BritBox has now released the first set of stills showing the all-star cast. The 5-part series stars Jared Harris, Geraldine James, Kush Jumbo, Mauve Dirmody, Nathaniel Parker and Billy Howell. The plot tells the story of a grieving mother who infiltrates the life of the man she believes killed her son. There were 190 cast and crew on set over the last 2 months, as well as hundreds of islanders having parts as extras in the production.
Vectus Radio hoping for community awards from Isle of Wight Observer. Iona. The shortlist for the 2020 Community Radio Awards was announced this week, with over 460 entries from 90 stations, more than ever before, with Vectus Radio nominated in 5 categories. The Vectus Radio P4PS Radio Training School is in the running for the Innovation category. One of their documentaries has also been nominated for Community Show of the Year, as well as for the top prize Community Development Project of the Year. Ian Mack, the station's founder and manager, said, "This is the 3rd year in a row our training school has been nominated for this particular category, showing that we are consistent with what we do to help young people in our community, boosting their confidence and communication skills using the main ingredients of radio. Previously, we have picked up 2 bronzes and it would be wonderful to go one better. I'm so proud of our team and all the youngsters that have been on the course. This is for them." Councillor Paul Brading, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Skills, said, "I'm absolutely delighted that the 4PS programme has been nominated for these prestigious awards. Having witnessed the incredible development of young people who have been through the programme, Ian and his team fully deserve to be recognised in this way, and I wish them all the luck at the awards ceremony." Vectus Radio Director Kelvin Curry has been nominated for Volunteer of the Year, and for the Women by Women show has been put forward as Community Show of the Year. Kelvin said, "I am honoured to be nominated as Volunteer of the Year for simply doing something that I enjoy so much." Maggie Curie, who hosts the For Women by Women show, said, "Interviewing such an interesting array of women, along with the host Kitty Lilly, was such fun, and we learned a lot more about our guests, sometimes more than they intended to tell us. We loved hearing all their stories and learning about their expertise and how they got to be doing their great work." The awards ceremony is taking place online from 7 p.m. on December the 12th.
Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight. Welcome you to this week's Talking News. I'm delighted to announce that we have finally been able to have our Talking News added as an Alexa skill. This means that we will be writing to members shortly and detailing how you can open the skill on any Alexa-enabled device and listen to the Talking News at your leisure. You will be able to jump to the next track, replay the track, and go to the previous track. You will also be able to play last week's Talking News and the week before's. Please don't worry, we will be writing to everybody with very detailed instructions, and staff are always on the phone available to help you set it up. I am also absolutely delighted to announce that we have taken on our new befriending manager, and we will now be able to get the service up and running very shortly. Elaine will already be known to some of you, as she has been a volunteer at our Dressfellest shop for the last couple of years. We all very much look forward to welcoming Elaine, who starts next week. As you will remember, in the November newsletter, we asked if anybody would like one of the large print diaries or planners, and also if you would like to purchase Site for Wight Christmas cards. The Christmas cards have arrived and they've been sent out to everybody who ordered. Thank you. I'm afraid there's no spares left. Every single one has now sold. However, the diaries and planners are still available. If you do wish to order one, please don't hesitate to call the office on 522205 and Susan will be able to help you. For anyone who has already ordered a diary or planner, these are due to be delivered to us mid-next week and we will get them out to you as soon as possible. Also in the November newsletter was details of our annual raffle. We are so pleased we have managed to now have 125 individual prizes donated to the charity to celebrate our 125th year. In addition to this, we have the first prize, which is a cash prize of £125. Tickets are still available. The draw will take place on the 7th of December at our annual Story Writing Awards ceremony. So please, if you would like to order any tickets, you can either do this through our Facebook page or by calling the office on 522205. Please remember, stay safe. That's the most important thing. Thank you very much for listening to our Talking News. Lisa.
Scaffolding news for week commencing the 23rd of November. Newport area, 10A Lugley Street, Halifax High Street, Card Factory 103 High Street, 54 Fairley Road, 66 St James's Street. Ventnor area, Southview, Grove Road, 1 Pier Street. Shanklin area, 9 Langard Road, 9 Regent Street. Sandown area, White City, Culver Parade, 2 Pier Street, 20 High Street, 3 Station Avenue. Ryde area, 23 High Street, 168A High Street, 11 and 12 Esplanade, The Colonnade 1 Lynn Street, 31 Cross Street, 9 Cross Street, 64 Union Street. Cowes area, Rope Walk, Langley Road, NatWest Bank, High Street, Carphone Warehouse, High Street, Rope Works Court, Mill Hill Road, 75 High Street. Totland area, Vector's House, Ward Road. Skip news for week commencing November the 23rd. Cowes area, plot, Shaw Road, Gurnard, 72 High Street, 170 Mill Hill Road, 1 Consort Road, 274 Arctic Road. Ride area, 9 Mill Ward Road, 51 Alfred Street. Ventnor area, 27 Spring Hill. Bembridge area, Village Hall, High Street. East Cowes, 48 Adelaide Grove. Seaview area, Woodlands, Ride Road. Newport area, 7 Hillside. Yarmouth area, Public Toilets, Bridge Road. Shanklin area, 66 Regent Street.
Sight for Wight would like to thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Talking News. We would also like to thank our volunteers for reading, and a particular thank you to the Isle of Wight County Press, Isle of Wight Observer, On the Wight, Island Echo, and Isle of Wight Radio. A special thank you must go to Vectis Radio, who has helped us get vital information to our members. Goodbye for now.